Hello! We are finishing up the very last part of the last chapter of the depression cure. You guys, we've been on this for months, once a week for months. We've been going through the steps of 6-step program to beat depression without drugs. Oh my goodness, I've learned so much. My husband's learned so much. It's been awesome. So last week we talked a little bit about coaching and how you might need a coach, and you can have a professional or an amateur as long as someone is there to support you. But oftentimes, even if you are going through these steps and to put the natural elements into place, you can't do anything about it because depression is often a symptom of something else. And what we've come to find out is my husband's depression actually stems from ADHD. So you learn things as it comes. So some of the common things that depression might come from, and if you're not finding results through the TLC, these lifestyle changes that we've been going through, these things might be some of the reasons why. Diabetes, hypothyroidism, so low thyroid function, sleep apnea, mononucleosis, so mono, persistent infection, hormonal imbalance, malnutrition, heart disease, cancer, stroke, brain injury, Parkinson's disease, or Alzheimer's. So depression could just be a symptom of those things. And if you're not noticing changes, go seek medical attention, talk to a doctor, and see if there's something else. Because if those need to be addressed first, then the depression can be addressed later, or the depression might not be as intense if you're depressing or you're focusing on those other elements. So in addition to these things that might be taking place, if you're on medications, there could be side effects from your medications that are common to trigger depression. And once you're on those medications, that maintains it. Some of the common medications that can trigger depression are Klonopin, Ativan, Xanax, and Valium, tranquilizers and sedatives, beta blockers, antihistamines, birth control pills, steroids, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, so NSAIDs, antipsychotics, and antihypertensive, so blood pressure medication. So if you're on any of those medications, those could also be a cause of depressive symptoms. There are also other effects that might be happening. For example, the treatment of depression is very, this works. We've seen it on my husband. He's done so many clinical depressions, Dr. Lardy. It works, but there are things that it helps in addition to depression. It helps reduce anxiety, soothe irritability, put the brakes on impulsive behavior. So even if you're not depressed, this works for any lifestyle. Just to add these to any lifestyle, it's going to improve and increase your lifestyle and make it better. But there are some forms of mental illness that block the depression cure techniques from working. And some of those, so I'm going through a lot of lists today. Some of those things are PTSD. So if you have gone through something, you have post-traumatic stress disorder, then you may need additional help. Most likely you will need additional help. Also, other anxiety disorders, substance abuse and dependence, bipolar disorder, and psychotic disorders, eating disorders. Those disorders and those things I just mentioned, you're going to need to seek medical attention, and those are part of the reason you have depression. But you will need to seek medical attention. The TLC can help soften, I guess, the symptoms you're experiencing, but it's not going to cure your depression because of the other things that are causing your depression. Does that make sense? So taking the antidepressant lifestyle to the next level. Sometimes the TLC program works and it's awesome, but other times you're just it's not quite enough. And if you've gone through and you don't have any of those medications you're taking, you don't have any of those back mental illnesses that I just talked about, but it's still just not quite enough, what you need to do is take everything to the next level. So don't just walk 30 minutes a day. Increase your exercise and what you're doing. Make it more intense. Make it more enjoyable. So upping your exercise dose can help. Increasing your omega-3s can help. Decreasing your sugar. I've heard a lot that gut health has a lot to do with brain health. And I've learned more about gut health, and we take a liquid collagen that helps with leaky gut. That's not the one thing that's helping my husband the most. It's the other supplements that are helping the most. But Nutrition is so important for our mental state, whether you have depression or not. Nutrition is so important. So when you decrease your sugar intake, that is very helpful. And also eating more tryptophan. So upping your protein is important for your body to fight depression. So getting more sunlight, getting as much as you can. If the sunlight isn't happening where you're living, doing light therapy like was discussed, increasing your vitamin D. All of these things, if just the basics that were discussed aren't working, just take it up a notch and see what happens. See if that helps improve. One of the things that's also really important is to recognize where the stress in your life is coming from. So take an inventory of the stress. And there's two things you can do about the stress in your life. You can either change the situation or you can learn to cope with it. Sometimes you can improve the situation. Even if you can't change it completely, you can improve the situation. So fortunately, in many cases, there are at least some steps you can take to make things less stressful. And then, like talking it out with a loved one, changing stop saying yes to things if it's adding more stress, and take more time for yourself and self-care and self-love. Improving your ability to cope is one of the other way. Like if you can't change a situation, you can improve your ability to cope with it. You can't make the waves stop, but you can learn to ride them. So a lot of times, like with heartache, loss, you can't change that, but there are ways to cope with it. And one of the most important ways to cope with, and most effective ways to cope with anything, is through social connection and support. So it involves turning to loved ones, friends, extended community for social support to cope. So you guys, I am kind of sad to shut the pages of these books with you. It's been interesting. I would love more engagement. I know that this platform isn't the best for engagement, but the principles of the therapeutic lifestyle have helped my husband. They have been extraordinarily effective for many people. And I just want to read this very last paragraph from Dr. Ilardi before we say goodbye. But I still have my Instagram, and I'm going to have to consider something else to go live about now that the book's over, because it's been fun. Remember, we are never designed for the sedentary, socially isolated, sleep-deprived, poorly nourished, indoor, frenetic pace of modern American life. Our brains, our bodies, our minds, our hearts, our souls, we're all built for something different. For a life filled with abundant physical activity, social connection, healthful sleep, balanced nutrition, natural sunlight, and the sort of meaningful, engaging activities that leave little time for depressive rumination. By living the lives we were meant to lead, reclaiming the protective features of the past and integrating them into the present, we can overcome depression for the long haul. We can vanquish the treacherous foe once and for all. We can live the depression cure. And those are words from Dr. Stephen Ilardi, who wrote the book, The Depression Cure. So I know we were meant for more. I know that our life has evolved and developed into so much technology, so much amazing inventions, really. But when you go back to the simplicity of life, like that's where our true happiness comes from, is just the simplicity of life, the connections we have, how we're feeling, how we're doing physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, just all those basic needs. So evaluate your needs today. What do you need to go back to simplicity and live a better life? So thanks for being with me, you guys. Thanks for jumping in the kindness notes. Your support, I've noticed you throughout these whole months. And everyone else who's been watching, thank you. And take care. We'll see you on the Instagram.